and we move on to the grand finals, myself versus John PX. John PX has a fairly similar lineup to Kolbasnik, who I just beat 2-0 in the previous round. He has virtually the same German no Heinz deck, virtually the same US mid-range deck. The key difference is instead of Britain France, he has Britain Poland Legions control. However, I did not play Kolbasnik's Britain deck because I banned it. This one's a best of 5, no bans. And John PX saw how well the Heinz deck fared. Actually, slight mistake. I did not ban Kolbasnik's Britain deck. I banned his US mid-range deck. He just never brought Britain. So John PX saw how well the no Heinz fared into discard. So he has that on mind. And with that in mind, he brings probably his best deck first, his Britain Poland Legions. Now, a little bit of interesting tidbit here. We had played this exact same matchup 2 or 3 days earlier on ladder. We were both very high on ladder. We were both playing probably these exact decks. And it was like a grueling 40-minute match, which I won by 1 health on fatigue. So with that in mind, going into this game, I was like, this is winnable. On paper, it looks pretty bad for the Soviet deck, but I was thinking to myself, this is winnable because I actually did win this matchup 2 or 3 days earlier. On the mulligan, 52k is a very good keep against this deck because there's a lot of targets. There's the Mosquito, the Wellington, Spitfire, the Karas, the Lancaster. Mobile defense, it's pretty good into Plan Wests early. However, this Britain deck has a lot more intel cards, so they can get buffed to 4 pretty easily. As well as just, I'm going first, so 845th in the front lines will probably stop a turn 3 Plan West. On John PX's side of the board, this is just a full mulligan. You're looking for Pioneers, you're looking for Plan Wests, you're looking for your early elites. I'm actually looking at keeping Parade here. Actually looking at keeping the full hand. That is interesting. I think sending back mobile defense is better. I end up going for a full keep. Now, the reason for keeping Parade is my deck does not run a ton of card draw, and this is going to be a battle of resources. So keeping the Parade is essentially giving myself slightly more resources in the opener at the expense of not getting a potentially better card. So I think the argument to keep Parade here is pretty strong. I'm not a fan of keeping mobile defense here. I think I would rather a slightly more impactful card. Maybe look for a First Rifles for turn 4, a Bologna Regiment, something that's going to stick on the board. So John PX passes. I play 845th. John PX will pass again. And then I should play second 845th and move up. Actually, fortunately for John, he finds His Majesty's Chosen. We don't get to see what the options are. However, in this matchup, you really want to just pick the biggest thing. Even if you're off with Pioneer, I think you still just pick the biggest unit every time. And it gets the Bowfighter, and that's exactly what it is. That is just a large unit. I found my second 52k. And if you're looking at John PX's hand right now, this is pretty good. John does not want to play Plan West into an 845th because you just immediately lose one of these legions. However, you don't really have another choice. So here, I should just move up, kill 1 legions. It's not worth throwing out the Earl factories on this. Now John has a choice. He can go for Underground State. It might be the play that you immediately think of because you think, oh, I'll just buff this legions to a 3/3. Can't get double traded into. Or can't be traded into for free. However, it summons a 2/2 legions, which can get traded into. As well as it doesn't give you the credits to kill the 2/3 if you were to retreat it. Kitty Hawk, you can take out one of these guys, but you still lose your legions. Just second plan West, and you lose 2 of your legions. Spitfire. You could do Spitfire, hold up the countermeasure to stop Spitfire from dying to 52k, because that is a pretty big concern if you just play Spitfire on 4. Out of all of those options, I kind of actually just like plan West pass the best. Play second plan West. You don't necessarily need to win off of the like John PX is running a very heavy version of this deck. He's running a lot of elites. He's running the rafts. So he doesn't need to win off of buffed legions. He can win off of just crazy tempo, off of uprising, and value off of these larger units in his deck. And Plan West sets up Kitty Hawk for cleaning up these 845s. He decides to go for the underground state anyways. I dislike this play. I'm going to be running like a fairly large amount of substantially higher cost units. Like an underground state on Bologna Regiment, an underground state on First Rifles, underground state on KV. These are much more like enticing options for underground state. As well as in the future, you might have a bigger impact from the intel, either buffing more legions or drawing off of Tarnow. As well as you just lose the 2/2 legions. So it's not like you're getting the legions off of it. Here, the choice is between trade into the 2/2 and Bologna Regiment or Mobile Defense 845th trade into the Bologna Regiment. I like just playing the Bologna Regiment, killing the 2/2. The benefit of this is, well, the weakness would be that it's weak to turn 5 RAF, it's weak to second underground state. The benefit of it is the Mobile Defense 845th is very weak to a shelling on turn 5. And I think getting shelling on turn 5 would be significantly worse with a Mobile Defense play than the Bologna Regiment play. As well as I'm not even guaranteed that this Mobile Defense will get value out of it. But I choose to go for the Mobile Defense play. If I were to play this game today, I think I would go for the Bologna Regiment play, but I think they're fairly close. Bologna gets punished by a wider range of things, but it gets punished less hard. Here, John PX has a few different options. He could Sexton. Sexton seems actually really good here. You can Sexton one of the tanks. It's too early for like a Partisans play. Sexton doesn't die to Line for a day. It's too early for Decima. Yeah, I think this is a very easy Sexton turn. Looks like he's considering quite a few options, and he does have quite a few options. He goes for the Kitty Hawk, and I think this is a massive mistake. I think, actually, if he went for the Sexton, he almost certainly would have won this game. Because I have no way of killing Sexton in hand, and if you look at my deck, I have very few ways of killing Sexton in my deck. At least anytime soon. This plays off curve by a fairly large amount. This Legion's dying anyways. I can just do move up, kill Legions. And then I have the choice between 52k or move up 845th, or just play the Bologna Regiment. Here, I think just playing the Bologna Regiment's better. Like, if he has RAF, I just replay Bologna Regiment. I'm checking the deck list right now, probably to count the number of units in his deck. I mean, the number of air units in his deck, just seeing the targets for 52k. And there was a lot of good targets for 52k. Pioneer draw is very good. Bowfighter is way too weak to a number of cards. RAF Lightning, like Pioneer, RAF Lightning on the Bologna, I think is probably just the best play. And he goes for the Bowfighter. This, he doesn't hold up the countermeasure. If he held up the evasive action, it would have forced me to play double 52k, potentially into a carpet bombing. Here, I should 52k first. I actually just forgot that he has evasive action in the deck. Like, it was open deck list. Whoops, turn sound on. I forgot, I just completely forgot it was in the deck. Like, it's open deck list, I don't really have an excuse. I just completely forgot. So I don't play around it at all, but for some reason, John does not hold it up that turn. I'm not sure why. So, very fortunately for me, I do not get punished by this. Fighter does die. Now the RAF on the Bologna comes out to kill the artillery. And here, probably just replay Bologna, kill the Kitty Hawk. It does float 3 credits, but I'm perfectly fine with that. My hand is looking very good at this point, and I'm under absolutely no threat. And that's exactly what I go for. Just kill the Kitty Hawk, get the value trade, play down the Bologna as the biggest unit in my hand. And now John has another pretty wide range of choices. I'd probably start with Pioneer Convoy. Just see what you get, because your hand is looking pretty weird right now. Like, the Spitfire doesn't deal a ton, or do a ton, because you can't give it Blitz. There's no other buffs, you're not getting a buff off of an air unit. Going for the Sexton now with evasive action. I guess the reason he didn't hold up evasive action before is he was tunnel visioning on holding up evasive on turn 8 with Sexton to stop a Detrima. I guess he was tunnel visioning on that. Which is both the reason he didn't play Sexton earlier, or could be the reason he didn't play Sexton earlier and didn't hold up evasive earlier, both of which I think would have been very good plays, much better than what he's currently going for. And I think he didn't really think through this turn entirely. He doesn't decide whether or not he's going to play the Pioneers. He doesn't decide whether... He hadn't decided whether or not he was going to attack with the RAF. And here, I'm 1 credit off of being able to do Partisans on Sexton, kill the RAF Ural factories. This is an awkward turn for sure. Probably just go for T60 and 52k on the RAF. Maybe not even 52k on RAF. Maybe just double T60. Because these T60s, they don't die to carpet bombing. And even if they do die, it gives me a blitz tank, allowing me to take out the Sexton in the future. And if I play double T60 and his response is to guard up, then my response is to do Partisans, kill the RAF, Ural factories the next turn. I go for Ural immediately. I do think T60 is just better. I think this is jumping the gun a bit. I think I'm unnecessarily scared of this Sexton. He doesn't have like a way of buffing it, and he doesn't really have a way of protecting it. So, holds up evasive action. Now he gets the Spitfire down with the benefit of evasive action. Or it gets the benefit of the buff from Wellington, and he still has evasive action to stop any Detrimas. And then he does draw last. This is a very simple mistake that we all make, but it is a mistake nonetheless. You should think through what you're going to do. Draw first. See what you get. Maybe he would have drawn into this Mosquito and want to play it. Probably not. Like, this is probably still the best play he could make with his hand, but regardless, you should draw first just in case he draws something better. So here I can do Sickle Naval Brigade, 52k. Obviously, that does not play around evasive action, so I should do 52k on the RAF, Sickle Naval Brigade. Sickle first, see what I draw, and completely forget about evasive action. And the reason for this is I don't want to play 52k, I'd rather save it and then just kill the RAF with the Wellington. Which, if he does not have evasive action in the deck, is the correct play. However, he does have evasive action in the deck. I should know this, and this is a pretty big mistake by me, which thankfully does not go particularly punished because I still have 2 guides up. So here, I believe this Uprising should deal 3 damage. He can double trade with the Spitfire into 2 of the guards and then Mosquito. Either the Bologna or the Wellington. He could do just carpet bombing, kill the Bologna, He could do carpet bombing to full clear the board with double trade. He has a lot of options. I think you're not ever going to get into a situation where the Spitfire can survive and give you any crazy lethals. So I think this is the correct option. The question is, do you want to do carpet bombing or mosquito? And I think the answer is probably just carpet bombing. Carpet bombing is not like a particularly effective card against my deck. And against, if you play mosquito here, if you play it on the Bologna, your mosquito can die to sickle, which is precisely what could happen. I could also play 52k. T60 in the middle. And attack phase without the Mare Nostrum. Because if he has carpet bombing, he's going to play carpet bombing this turn. If he doesn't have carpet bombing, 4 health and 1 extra damage doesn't matter a ton. And I would much rather have the Mare Nostrum to buff the tank, the T34, because I can do Mare Nostrum Sickle with the T34 to take out a Tarnow. So he does 3 damage Uprising. Plan West. Karis. And research for 2. Or, like, research for the next stage. Stage 2 is what I mean. There's some pros and cons to this play. So, for example, here he could just do carpet bombing, Plan West Karis. He doesn't get the research in, but he still has Uprising over carpet bombing, which is a pretty big deal. I think I prefer that. I think I prefer Uprising, having Uprising in hand to potentially deal 5-7 plus damage in the future, because it means you're always holding a full board clear over my head, whereas this carpet bombing does not scale past 3 damage. So if you're in a situation where you can deal 3 damage with carpet bombing, or you can deal 3 damage with Uprising, unless the tempo from playing Uprising is significantly, significant, I think you should just play carpet bombing. So in this case, I think it is a mistake to play Uprising. I think you should just do carpet bombing, play on West Karis. Here, By the Sword is a pretty insane draw. I don't actually have to play it. I could do double sickle on the Karis, Mare Nostrum, trade into one of the Legions. Play doesn't look great. I could even keep the Karis alive and do sickle, move up, trade, and then take out the other one with the tank, but then I, of course, leaves it to the Karis. So yeah, I think the best play is probably... This is actually a very awkward position. I'll probably start with By the Sword. I think just drawing 4. This game might go to fatigue, though, so that is also something to keep in mind. But I think it's either double sickle on the Karis, or start with the By the Sword. So I, excuse me, I end up going for removing both Legions. And I think what I'm going for here is a win on fatigue, where the intel cards generated by this Karis, it will generate value off of Tarnow, especially if this Pioneer can live, but it will just get him significantly deeper into fatigue, since each one draws a card, plus if he's playing it with Tarnow, he's drawing 2 cards per. And if I remember correctly, the game we had played on ladder before, a couple days before, I had one on fatigue. So I think the reason I go for this line is specifically remove the Legions, they're the bigger threats, and he can keep these Karises around, they'll fill up his hand with crappy card draw that will make him lose on fatigue. So with that in mind, actually maybe that is just a really good play, which I saw then and I don't see now. Of course here, the downside of keeping the Karis alive is now he's just going to buff even more Legions. This is his 3rd Plan West. You should play the 3-cost Orb first. See what you get. Heroes of the Soviet Union is probably one of the best, if not the single best order in my entire deck you can get. Because this is just going to come down to value. And he decides to forego the synthetic rubber and instead go for third tier research. And by this point, I should have no business winning this game. I should lose this game for sure. This turn is horribly awkward. If I do buy the sword, I mill a card. I can do Sickle Naval Brigade. Probably my best play is Sickle Naval Brigade, one of the legions, and throw it at T60. But I also have to consider that he's going for Bletchley Park. Well, he currently has the choice between Bletchley Park and the... I'm blanking on the name of it, but the one that makes all my cards cost 3 more. So he could go for either. Knowing my deck, and especially knowing my hand, he should go for Bletchley Park. Here, I think if he just goes as Bletchley Park to hand, he wins the game. The reason he's not doing that is he sees I have Buy the Sword in hand, and he knows Buy the Sword would draw 5. However, if he had gone for Bletchley Park without playing the other Plan West, it would only draw 3. So, but the Naval Brigade sticks around, the T60 is a pretty good option to clear up the board, and then I'll eventually draw Buy the Sword. So actually, yeah, it's not quite as simple as going for Bletchley Park here. I think I would just add it to hand right here. So just in the future, you always have the threat of Bletchley Park looming. He instead goes for heroes, keeping his options open for the research. Gets the KV, which is quite good. Doesn't die to Mary, or doesn't die to Lion for a day. And he gets the second Karis down, which means he's now getting 2 of these intel cards, these section 1s, in his hand. Each turn. Fiat draws pretty bad. I can just... Almost certainly I'm going to be double trading into the 6/6 legions. So probably double trade Fiat T60. Don't even take out the Karis in the front line. Just commit to that line. Because then I have double Mare Nostrum T34 in the front line for these other legions, like the next wave of legions that's coming. I mean, at this point, like, has all the cards you could ever want. Decide to take out the Karis now. This does seem strange to me. Like, if I was going to stop the Karis legions, probably should have done that way sooner when I had the opportunity to kill the Karis when it first came out. And after that point, I should just commit to him having these guys flood his hand. Cardboard Bomb here is quite good. Lets him take out the Fiat, kill the T34 with the Karis, and move up both legions. Of course, does not draw first. And then does not draw first again. In his defense, there's a lot of card draw in the deck and in his hand. Although it is fairly inexcusable drawing after making other moves this many times in a row. It was not to get around overdraw. These are draw 1s. His hand size would have stayed the same. And here, just double move up. I don't have anything in my deck that can possibly combo with Fortify, like, kill you from 19. And by not moving up, you let Decima be a serious option. Like, I don't have Decima in hand because he has intel on my entire hand. But I could top deck Decima. Here. I know if I go for Buy the Sword, I will immediately get I am Sonar Alert. Is that the name of it? The 9-cost British research. I know if I do buy the sword, that will immediately happen. So I instead do T60 first rifles, I believe. Just trying to hold off slightly longer because I do have 2 turns before any Bletchley. However, John sees my entire hand, so he knows that if he plays Bletchley here, he almost certainly wins the game. So for John PX, he should just add Bletchley to hand. You can do shelling to prevent me from trading in this T60. Just shelling to add Bletchley Park to hand. He's choosing to go for the underground state and just win off of these large legions. I still have a Partisans in deck, and I have the ability to draw a lot of... I still have Partisans and 2 Lion for Days in deck. So this does seem very strange. He's also not holding up like any Ultra or anything like that, and he draws last again. This is just really bad form from John PX. Winter Offensive is an excellent draw here. Lets me do Winter Offensive, Mare Nostrum, trade into one of these legions. I stay at 24 health. Kills 4 of his units. The only other option would be for Buy the Sword to look for Lion for days, but at this point, Buy the Sword actually draws 6. So, Buy the Sword draws 6, so I would actually be losing cards. And here, John PX still should just trade the unit and go for a Bletchley Park. Although the power of Bletchley Park has been drastically reduced by the fact that my hand is getting so small and I'm able to get these like crappy Mare Nostrums out. And at this point, John PX is drawing so many cards, he is fully committed to winning on this board, not winning on fatigue. Which is fairly likely. He is substantially ahead on cards in hand. He is substantially ahead on board. Goes for the second Orb and gets my Lion for a day. That's not great. I have very few cards in my deck that can be targeted by Lion for a day. Red Dawn here lets me kill the 10-3. Although, actually, more importantly, it lets me kill the KV and then draw 4. And essentially just pray that it's almost guaranteed I'll draw an answer to the 10-3 in the front line. So killing the KV here is actually more important. The question is, do I kill it for 1 or do I kill it for 3? I think the answer is I kill it for 3. Or, I kill it for taking 3 damage, 1 cost. I kind of have to play pretty fast and loose with my health total right now. This is 1 credit off of greatness. I'm 1 credit off being able to Partisans the Tar now into the 10-3. However, I can take the 4-4, trade it into the 10-3. He's running low on intel cards, and if he does play any more intel cards, it will require him to draw more. So, just Partisans, take out 2 legions. I have Lion for a day on Tar now in the future. And here, John PX is starting to realize that he probably should have gone for Bletchley Park. It's not too late to go for Bletchley Park. Like, just add Bletchley Park to hand, move up these 2 units. I can't Decima anything. My hand's pretty awkward. Like, the units he sees in my hand don't do a ton. And his follow-up from adding Bletchley Park is he has a Lion for a day. He has Lancaster, he has Shelling. He instead goes for Active Sonar now, which he does Active Sonar move up. And this is just a massive mistake. As we will see, this is Mobile Defense, Lion for a day, the Tar now. In fact, I don't even know if I need to Lion for a day, the Tar now. I could just play T60. Get it off the board. I no longer have the threat of Bletchley Park. I no longer have the threat of Active Sonar. He can do Shelling to take care of these. He'll be 1 credit off Lancaster. But he can do Shelling Blackwatch. Pass. He sees that I have 2 orders in hand. Yep, Shelling Blackwatch, pass. Here, Engineers is coming out for sure. T60 is coming out for sure. I can kill the Legions. And that's likely the correct play. He is running very low on intel, so this 3-3 is likely not going to get any bigger. I think there's certainly an argument for saving Red Dawn there. But I think this is fine. Here, John PX has quite a few options. I'm a fan of playing it fairly slow. Doing Raft Lightning on the T60, move up Blackwatch. Because the Raft Lightning will likely bait out any Dechima. Here, he hovers over the underground state. This is something to notice for several reasons. One, if he was going to play underground state, he should play it first because it reveals what the 3rd card in my hand is, which could change his mind on whether or not he wants to play Lancaster. Like, if the 3rd card in my hand is like a Sickle or something, maybe he thinks, okay, this Lancaster isn't actually important. Or maybe if the 3rd card in my hand is Dechima, he's like, well, if I play Lancaster, it's going to die. And the second thing is, if he does underground state first, the T60 actually gets the cost increase. It gets returned to hand, and then its cost is increased to 5 by Lancaster. So the fact that he's even considering playing underground state after Lancaster shows he did not think this turn through. Which he ends up just passing. And here, I have 2 options. Play the 272nd, or Mary Nostrum, move up, hit Blackwatch. And neither of those 2 options sound particularly amazing. This Lancaster is almost certainly hitting headquarters again next turn. I like 272nd guards, move up, hit the Blackwatch with the 2-4 T60. It sets up killing this Blackwatch in the future with the T34. It weakens the guard protecting the Lancaster. I think going for Mary Nostrum does not do enough. And I'm not sure if John runs Ultra or not. But he could potentially have an Ultra up here. And 272nd guards. I've seen 2 underground states, 1 RAF. So he still has 1 underground state, 1 RAF. So if I'm playing 272nd, I should do it now while I still have a higher health total that I can come back from a potential bounce. So I do end up going for 272nd, hit Blackwatch. John PX has a few options here. I think just doing Raft Lightning and hitting face for 5 again is the correct play. Because at this point, you're just like setting up lethal, essentially. You could even do Raft Lightning, hit face with a Lancaster, finest hour on the Raft. You bring me to 10, or you bring me to 8 health, and you have underground state or Lion for a day to clear the guard the next turn. You've seen both partisans go. Monty's first, which, I mean, hey, it's drawing first, so there's that. It means he no longer has the credits to do attack phase, Raft Lightning, finest hour, which is a pretty big miss. Goes for 2nd Blackwatch. Here, By the Sword is incredibly clutch. I can either go for... I could go for the Red Banner to get 2 Stalins, which would play around Churchill. It means he just wouldn't be able to play Churchill. It would heal me 2. However, it would not kill this Lancaster. This Lancaster is still alive. This Lancaster could even still hit face because of the Blackwatches protecting it. Whereas By the Sword, I still have 1 Lion for a day and 2 Dechimas left in my deck. So the odds by the sword kills Lancaster is fairly high. I find a line for a day and a Decima. Here, I think the correct play would be line for a day. Because I know he doesn't have Ultra up. Again, I'm still not certain if he has Ultra in his deck or not. Like, I know this well playing the game because it's an open deck list. Currently, I don't remember if he had Ultra in his deck or not. But I would play line for a day just because this Decima can hit things that have less than 4 attack that are in the support line, which is more likely because his deck doesn't really run Blitz. So, for example, if he has a Wrath Lightning, or in this case, the Wellington, I'd much rather have, like, Decima can kill a Wrath Lightning or a Wellington in the support line, whereas it cannot kill, or line for a day cannot. The one exception would be if he gets a Churchill to the front line, but if he plays Churchill on the board currently, I just get Decima back. Here, John has a few options. None of them are great. He is starting to have this game slip away from him. This Engineers is threatening to heal a lot. He no longer has that consistent 5 damage each turn from Lancaster. I think it might have been worth just doing a full wipe of the board with line for a day and Uprising. I heal. If you do Uprising first, I heal 6. So I go to 19. The board's entirely empty. And I think you could probably win the game from there with Wrath Lightning and Wellington. Although I guess you have to worry about the T-34. And you have to worry about me actually finding my removal from this point, because he has a limited number of threats left in the deck. Excuse me. So does Wellington take out the T-34? I am left in this position. I think just playing Decima on the Wellington, it's not great, but I still... And I actually know he has line for a day in hand, because it's the only... It's line for a day or buy the sword. So I have a fairly good idea he has line for the day in hand. Maybe Wellington just isn't that threatening. Maybe I can just do T-34, take out one of these Black Watches, and move up the other 2 units. Like, Monty's gone, Shellin's gone, so I don't have to worry about my front line getting pinned, and then he wins off of Blitz Bombers and Fighters. And getting this 272nd to the front line plays around Churchill, plays around 2nd Wrath Lightning. Yeah, I think I just take out the Black Watch, move everything up. I think playing Decima on the Wellington here is unnecessary. With Spitfire gone, I don't have to worry about my health total too much. I just have to worry about being able to kill every single large unit left that he plays. And in this case, I think playing Decima here, a little too aggressive. Really, the only 2 threats left in his deck are, he has Churchill, he has Wrath plus Finest Hour, and I believe he might have another Tar now. So I have 2 Lion for days for the Churchill Tar now or Churchill buffed Wrath. However, that does leave the 3rd unit, which T-34 plus Fiat plus anything else left in my deck could potentially clear up. Here, I think you're just in the same situation of Uprising Lion for a day. Because we're on the verge of entering Fatigue, and if you leave the ISU on the board for a single turn, it means I can do Mary Nostrum, heal for 9, which could very easily be the difference between winning and losing on Fatigue. So he does go for the Uprising Line for a day. I find my heroes. So heroes first, see what I get. Alternatively, I could just do T-34, hit face for 9 Fiat, up to 11. And that is what I end up choosing. And I I agree with myself here. I think this is better because heroes lets me keeping the heroes lets me react to the state of the board. Um, it lets me be it lets me pick a unit that is slightly more useful for the situation I find myself in. For example, if he just has a large infantry or a large tank left over, maybe I want the 272nd large guy that summons another large unit. If he has this massive unit that's threatening to kill me, that it's damaged, maybe I want the ISU or the Naval Brigade. Also, this is just gets the most units on the board immediately, gets the 5 damage in now, which could be very important. He's now out of cards in deck, so he does not have the extra time now. He just has Wrath Finest Hour Churchill, which I have I have 1 line for a day, and the unit's currently on board to respond to, which means that this is essentially a solved game. There's not a whole lot John PX can do. Trade that. I don't even need to line for a day. Like, it's actually just not worth going for line for a day. If I can get a T28. This is the 3rd T28 I pick of this tournament, I believe. Lets me stop a fatigue damage, lets me kill this plane. I still have line for a day left for the Churchill. Absolutely no chance. And with this, made a crazy comeback in this game. I think John did not capitalize on his advantage. I think he played too conservatively and assumed that he had the game in the bag regardless. And I got a few fortunate top decks and was able to come back, and there's nothing left he can do. He knows I have the line for a day. Churchill goes down. T28 comes back down, kills the legions. He can carpet bombing, but he dies on fatigue first. And with that, he surrenders, and I go up 1-0. So, game 2, he brings his Legions deck again. I go to German. Britain discard, as I mentioned previously. German Britain discard slightly better into control, and I figured he would bring his Legions deck again. And let's take a look at the mulligans. So, he's offered Underground State, Shelling, the Orp, Sexton, Uprising. So definitely send back Uprising, Sexton, Orp. You could consider keeping the Orp. Because if you hit my Lend-Lease, that is massive. And even if you hit Wolfpack, that's actually pretty good. Send back Shelling. And probably send back Underground State too. I don't really run a ton of units that really need to be retreated until I get to like turn 6 Gren Guides. But I think if you're playing around something turn 6, you'd presumably have drawn something else by then. So I'd actually either full mulligan or keep the 3k Orp. On my side of the board, keep Condor for sure. Send back Fog of War. I'm tempted to keep Lend-Lease. I'm going first, so I'm going to be low on cards, and this matchup I will need Lend-Lease to draw. However, he runs Black Watches, so if I keep Lend-Lease and he just gets like 2 early Black Watches, and this Lend-Lease goes to 11, I've lost the game. Almost certainly. Fog of War, I just don't think it's good enough. So, I'd send back Fog of War, and I think I would send back Lend-Lease. I think Lend-Lease is a card I need to draw into later. I'd keep Yegged, just because I can like send back a tar now on turn 5. And that is exactly my mulligan. John PX chooses to keep Underground State. So, turn 1 U16. Essentially, the idea, there's some decks where you want to play turn 1 U16, there's some decks where you don't. So, for example, against Soviet control, you don't want to play turn 1 U16, because they have very clear set out, this is the anti-aggro cards, this is the control cards. And if you're playing discard, they'll just discard their anti-aggro cards. However, against this Britain-Poland, he doesn't necessarily have any anti-aggro cards, because everything in the deck sort of synergizes together. Everything in the deck sort of works as a tiny combo piece. So if you play a U16 early, it actually forces them to sort of pick which combos they'll go for this game and which they won't. Fortunately for John, he has this evasive action he could send back. He has this Observer Core he could send or not send back, discard. I think I would discard the Observer Core. He instead discards a Wellington and discounts the Underground State. So I guess his idea is to win a very quick, like with crazy tempo off of Legions. The idea being turn 3, plan West, turn 4, 2-cost Underground State, move up both Legions, and then try to get some other intel cards in there and snowball with them before they reach, before I reach Carpet Bomb range. However, I think that play is very unlikely to work out. I have Sudden Strikes in the deck. I have these Condors, which can come down early to kill the Plan West, or the Legions off the Plan West. And losing Wellington is pretty big. Like, it's burst against a deck that has limited healing. It's a pretty massive tempo swing. And you're playing the Observer Core out immediately after, so you're lowering yourself even further in number of cards in hand, committing onto this tempo play, which I think is just way too early. So here I should just play Condor. He doesn't have anything to punish this. Like, worst case scenario, he discounted a Wrath and plays a 3-cost Wrath, in which case this just goes back to hand. And here, John PX just passes. Because if he plays the Plan West, he just loses these Legions faster than they can get buffed, faster than they can get to the front line. Here, I don't go for double Condor in case he discounted Carpet Bombing. No need to overcommit onto the board. Also, if he discounted Mosquito, it would leave me with a 3-3 Condor into the Mosquito. Here, just slap the Wolfpack. The fact that I'm going to play this Wolfpack, I believe means that he's not running Ultra. We also didn't see it last... Yeah, he went to Fatigue last game, and we didn't see Ultra. So I guess he doesn't run Ultra in the deck. So, holds up Evasive Action and goes for the max tempo. Honestly, at this point, I think John PX is just playing on tilt. Like, I think he's mad at himself, or at RNG, or at the game, or whatever. I think he's just mad that he lost the last game, because he was in such a dominant position and somehow lost. That I think he's just, like, letting the emotions get to him, because this play is pretty terrible. There's, like he literally just returned Condor to my hand. This Condor is going to come down and kill one of these units. And this Condor is going to hit the board. It's going to be able to kill 2 of these units before he can get to the front line. And this Evasive Action is going to trigger on the Condor's entirely useless deployment effect, which he knows is in hand because he just returned it. And all of this is just overcommitting because he doesn't have any more buff cards for a potential turn 7 Carpet Bombing next turn, which would just blow him out of the water, in which case he's already committed 3 cards into this play. The Observer Core, the Plan West, and the Underground State. Now 4 with the Evasive Action. He's commit 4 cards into getting a 2-2 and a 3-3. So just double move up. I have double Condor. Just kill both these Legions. He plays Carpet Bombing. And then I probably do Panzer 3H. Here you just have to play Carpet Bombing. You're taking out 2 bombers, and it's that or pass, so... Here there is actually... Okay, no. If I'd run a U16, Lend-Lease would have been a consideration. However, Panzer 3H hold up from the deep is pretty good. Pick Comet. Well, maybe not. All of these are good. Well, okay, the Nakshub's not good in this situation anymore. I've seen the Wellington go, so I'm going to pause. I've seen the Wellington go. I'm not too worried about bombers, and his deck runs a ton of guard, which implies Tactical Strike being good. However, Comet is essentially just like a... It can often be used as a Tactical Strike that costs 3 more. But with the upside being, it puts a clock on him. And with him being this low on cards, putting a clock on him is actually pretty good. So I think I prefer Comet over Tactical Strike here. I think Tactical Strike is too conservative. I do actually, if you look at the trends of how I play, I do tend to play much too conservative. Not necessarily too conservatively, but I play conservatively when I play control decks in tournaments. And I think it's sometimes to my detriment, um, like in this game. However, John PX tosses out the Churchill. Um, I'm not going to say it was incorrect, because it's not like he could particularly play around anything. You don't want to play the Tarnow out without intel. You don't really want to retreat my Panzer H to begin with, but if it gets a unit on the board, that might live. So, Churchill's the correct play. It's just very unfortunate I had the From the Deep. Panzer H comes back down. Between Root Out, Sudden Strike, Reich's Research, I have second Sudden Strike in hand. I have Tactical Strike. I have second Root Out in hand. I do not need any more ways of killing legions. However, this research is something that I can play now, while I don't really have a ton of other options, and it will allow me to take out these Tarnows in the future. Here, he's a credit off Lancaster attack. He does not have the Finest Hour for Spitfire. I believe Finest Hour is actually discarded by Wolfpack, if I remember correctly. So knowing that Finest Hour is gone, you could just play Spitfire, bait out a Tactical Strike, and then Lancaster on the next turn. Probably your best play. You could also do Spitfire and Tarnow, but that's a bit of an overcommitment to the board. He instead decides to pass and just go for the Lancaster next turn. I don't hate this, because you can basically guarantee that the Spitfire would die as soon as it hit the board, and maybe you can top deck like a Blackwatch next turn. However, I just add 9k research to hand. I can kill anything he plays. I play U16. And again, fortunately for him, he has this Fortification, which is one of the few cards in his deck that has 0 synergies. But like, if his hand is either all big units and he's waiting for the Intel to draw off Tarnow, or if his hand is Intel and he's waiting for a Tarnow to draw, U16 would be fine discarding either of those. He also draws an Observer Core, which is another useless card in his deck. Yeah, Observer Core is worse than Fortification in this situation, because you are getting kind of low on health. Lancaster hits HQ. This is correct, because it's essentially acting as 8 credits. However, he also knows that this Lancaster can immediately die to the U-boat. Type 21 U-boat. And it's discarding 2 of the cards in his hand right now. Hits the Tarnow, hits the Monty. Those were the 2 ones that drew cards. That's pretty fortunate for me. Although the Monty, like, it's unlikely I'm going to have 3 units on the board at any point, so I think hitting Spitfire would have been better than Monty. However, discarding the Tarnow is tragic, because this is the underground state. This is really his last chance to win. He makes me mill, but I have a Panzer H for the 3rd time, and the odds I can't kill Spitfire is essentially not, like, it's essentially 0. Plays Fortification here, probably to play around Annihilation, discarding it. And that's exactly what I would have done had he not played that. Here, I think taking Annihilation is still correct, because he has Lend-Leases in the deck. He can come back. Maybe he draws a Sexton. I'm dropping Tactical Strike here regardless, and I'm under absolutely no threat. So I think I'd pick Annihilation and then just do Tactical Strike, Sudden Strike this turn. Or not even Sudden Strike, because I have Fog of War. I'm fine with him Fog of War in the Legions. On the next turn. He finds Shelling, you just, like, you gotta play it. There's not really, like, you've seen 2 U16s, and with the double Fog of War, this game's essentially over. Fog of War Legions back to deck and play the Egg Bomber. I know what his next 2 cards, like 2 draws are going to be, 3 if I do another Fog of War. And John's played this game before. He knows he cannot win from this situation and surrenders. So with that, he's now down 2-0. This game, I think he just played, like, I think he was on tilt. I think that was fairly clear from his plays. He played very fast. He played very, he played very narrow-mindedly. He was, like, kind of stuck to one plan, regardless of how little chance that plan looked to have. He did not adapt to the situation. And also, he just didn't get fortunate. He went first. He did not get any card draw. And with that, I go up 2-0. Game 3, Britain discard. John PX, realizing he has to beat Britain discard with all 3 of his decks, switches to mid-range. Here, John PX's hand, I would keep Sherman, mulligan back First Marines, mulligan back half-track. And I'd probably keep 35T. Just go for the high roll potential. Keep Sherman, keep 35T, send back the other 2, and go for one of your 8 US 1-drop units. On my side of things, Pioneer is an insane card. Churchill is very good against US, but I think it's too slow, especially going second, to be worth keeping. Definitely send back Ultra. MI5 is an interesting keep, because I can do MI5 on turn 2 if I miss a 2-drop. And it's not anything crazy, but it just gives him 1 less card. It cycles me 1 card deeper into my deck for options. If I had a 2-drop, like for example, if this Churchill was the 1-3 Commando, I could see myself keeping Wolfpack with the Pioneer and just going for a very early locking of the hand. However, that is not the case, and I think having a 2-drop is much too important. Especially, he's going first, but if he has 30 seconds, very quickly his hand is like 6-7 cards, despite having a ton of units on board. So I like this current mulligan from me. I have no idea what John PX is doing in his mulligan right now. I'm assuming that's going to change. I end up keeping the Wolfpack. So that's a bit of a high roll mulligan. Basically, the idea being that if he goes down to just Sherman in hand on 4, which is not unheard of for US, I Wolfpack and win the game. And playing MI5 will help me get to that point. And then it doesn't really matter if he has a ton of units on board because they're not super threatening. However, I think it was better to just mulligan for the 2-drops. Here, John PX actually decides to full mulligan. Knowing what he gets back, this is correct, because what he gets back were the next cards on his deck. That's not exactly how it works, but if they were just the next cards on his deck, he would definitely lose. However, statistically speaking, I think this mulligan is terrible. Like, with a full mulligan, you're drastically increasing the odds you get 230 seconds, which is essentially just starting with 1 less card. And you are taking a massive hit to your curve. The odds that you get back 4 cards into a good curve is quite low. And also, you're sending back your Sherman, and the point of keeping Sherman early against a discard deck is they don't run a ton of units. Like, I don't run a ton of units. So the odds that you will get a US unit to the front line is almost guaranteed. Excuse me. It might not be on 4. It might not be with the perfect curve. But it's basically guaranteed. And if you can play Sherman on 4 to draw, you're in a very good spot against discard. With this mulligan, I guess he's just looking for the absolute nuts. Well, I don't even know what he's looking for, because if you wanted the absolute nuts high roll potential, you would keep the 35T and mulligan the other 3 for combat engineers. Again, I think John PX is just on massive tilt from the first game, and then after losing the second game, I wouldn't be surprised if in his mind, he lost the second game due to unlucky discards. Actually draw the commandos, so going for this high roll mulligan is actually working out. And I'm sort of disfavored in this matchup, so going for a high roll mulligan is not terrible, but again, I think it is just, I shouldn't have kept Wolfpack. I don't think. It's working out. John PX's hand here is quite unfortunate. He misses all of his 1-drops. I don't know why he doesn't play Whirlwind. I don't know. Like, you could even play 99th and to follow up turn move up 99th, second 99th for a Sherman. But with that play aside, just play Warble this turn. Next turn you do Warble move up 99th to buff it to a 4-5. Like, if I have number 1 Commando, it trades into it. If I have Honey, it trades into it. He emotes, "Are you kidding me?" Which, from my point of view, I have no idea what's in his hand. Maybe he has a bunch of 1-drops and he's saving them for bad discards. But by emoting, are you kidding me? I'm like, oh wait, his hand must be terrible, and he's upset about it. Which is information. Like, he's just, by emoting, he's actually just giving me information. Now this could be a layer of mind games here. You could, like, emote as if you have a terrible hand to make your opponent think your hand's terrible, overcommit to the board, and then you can come back. But in this situation, John PX is just on tilt, and he's just making it worse by giving me information about his hand. And also, by not playing the Whirlwind, he has a subpar hand, and he's playing it poorly. Like, you can win games with subpar hands if you play the hand well. In this case, he has a subpar hand, and he's absolutely not playing well. Here, I would just play PIR, pass. I don't want 7 strikes in this deck, so you can just, like, start buffing the attack of this unit up really high. If I don't move up commandos, it's letting you do move up Sherman. And if I do move up commandos, you have First Marines to take it out. So here, I know he can't do move up Sherman next turn. So I can just do MI5, U16. Just start getting cards out of his hand. Also, going for the U16 reduces the cost of Wellington. I decided to move up the Commando, which this is correct, because if I didn't move up the Commando, he could do move up, half track the Commando back to hand, and then suddenly his Sherman's guaranteed. And things go from terrible for him to terrible for me. Because for all I know, his bad hand is having like 4 Shermans. So, just playing it as safe as possible, making sure he cannot draw off of Sherman. Seems like the smart play. And, as previously mentioned, just toss the First Marines into this Commando. It doesn't feel great, but such is life. I mean, you can't get a 6-3, which you can do move up Sherman next turn. And I top deck Tactical Strike, which is excellent. By excellent, I mean absolutely insane. Like, I have 3 in my deck. It's not like I got the 1-of card. But it's just, like, sort of the nail in the coffin for this game. And as you can see, I play MI5 first, draw first, see what I get. There's not really anything in my deck I could realistically want more than a Tactical Strike in this situation. Now John PX needs to get one of these 99ths on the board to be able to move up, draw with Sherman. And if he's playing a 99th, he wants a Whirlwind to be buffed. So he does move up 99th, buff the Whirlwind. And this means this Wellington can't come out. Second Tack Strike draw. I have 3 choices. I can do Honey, Tack Strike the 99th, U16, which I'm a fan of. It's essentially going for the, if you have Sherman, you can't draw with it, and also I'm virtually guaranteeing that Sherman will be discarded in the future. I can do C4th U16, so it lets him get the Sherman off, but my HQ is protected, and he's discarding the few cards left in his hand, and then I have Tack Strike on Sherman the following turn. Or, I can just play Wolfpack U16, which actually, scratch that. Wolfpack U16 is just the best play. I forgot that Wolfpack U16 just fully discards his hand. Like, his hand is just gone. He's forced to discard, like, it's 50-50 on one of these, and then he's forced to discard the other with U16. So, he keeps this Warble alive for 1 turn. He hits me for 4, moves up the 99th, and then I have follow-up Tack Strike the 2-2, so he can't top deck Sherman as an out, and then C4th. I actually prefer Tack Strike C4th to Sexton here. John draws 32nd, which significantly worse than, for example, We Can Do It, or Hellcat, or Sherman, but not terrible, because he gets these little dudes out of his deck. Here, I'm not entirely sure why he doesn't play the 32nd. Just get it the last 32nd out of your deck, just so you can't overdraw it. Like, if I have carpet bombing, I have carpet bombing regardless. You're kind of just screwed. Top deck shelling here is pretty good. I can do shelling, kill the 99th. I don't like Wellington here. Like, it comes down pinned, and the idea is that his unit is pinned, so by the time it comes around to this Wellington being able to attack, he probably won't have accomplished anything. However, it just basically means I have an extra unit on board for a potential Stars and Stripes in the future. Combat Engineers here does absolutely nothing, so I would just play out your entire hand. You've seen both MI5s, so you can't really get particularly punished for keeping it in hand, but it also doesn't accomplish anything. So here, just annihilate one of the 32nds and shoot the other 32nd. Again, just doing absolutely everything to stop a potential Sherman draw. Dive bombing does absolutely nothing. This Whirlwind's going to die. And at that point, there's just nothing in his deck that comes back from this. There's no Enigmas. I can do Tactical Strike, attack with the Wellington, move up Sexton, and play Honey. I like that play the best. Because obviously if I keep Honey in the support line, and if I play Honey and then keep Sexton in the support line, I could potentially get blown out by a Stars and Stripes. So I don't move up the Sexton. I'm not entirely certain John is running Stars and Stripes, but if he is, I do not like this play. And even if he isn't, like, even if he draws like Hellcat here, that's just unnecessarily losing a unit. Half track, his options to retreat are the Wellington, which costs 0, or the Pioneer, which costs 1. Lend-Lease first, looking for discard. And should just move up Honey, deal 5. Like, I can't really lose the game at this point. Double half track, but even then, that's not enough to get to the front line. I have 8 damage on board. Ultra in case of a We Can Do It top deck, or a dive bombing top deck, or a strap bombing top deck. And yeah, I can either do Honey or Research. I do not believe I missed lethal. Yeah, I definitely didn't miss lethal with Synthetic Robbery that turn. But there's nothing in his deck. He can kill the Pioneer, retreat the Wellington. He is still dead on board. And with that, I take it 3-0 over John PX in the finals. I even draw the U16, which would prevent him from drawing the next turn. And with that, the February OCC ended. I think this was my 6th OCC win. I dropped 1 game to Kato, and then 2-0'd Kolbasnik, 3-0'd John PX. I got quite fortunate with my draws against John PX. Man, I just, like, high-rolled the hell out of him in Game 3, and he didn't have a great hand. But at the same time, I think he played his hand quite poorly. I think he probably could have gotten a guaranteed Sherman off had he played Warble on turn 2. So, with that, there's something I like to do at the end of all of these streams, which is rank the 8 players based on how they played in this specific tournament. Because people have good tournaments, people have bad tournaments. Like, for example, John PX in the Open is a beast. He's won, like, 3 in a row or something. Very consistent player there. This was not his tournament. Obviously, we can't judge Nolan because he didn't play. And we can't judge Vinny because he didn't play on stream. So it's really just going to be, how did the 6 players play? I think of the 6, Dion... Well, it's hard to say Dion... Okay, of the 6, the Tree Pit played the worst, I think. And this is not to say, like, he's a terrible player. This is just to say, I think in this tournament, this was the first major tournament I've seen him in. The nerves might have got to him. Maybe it was just an off day. But of all of these 6 players, Tweepapit was by far the weakest. I think he made pretty massive mistakes in both of his 2 games. But again, it's hard to judge because he played 2 games. John PX played 7 games. I played 8 games. After Tweepapit, I would say I think Dion fairly consistently made strange choices. Although it's hard to say because it's less so that he made mistakes in this tournament and more so that his decks, well, specifically his baby combo deck, was just awful. And to the extent in which you can play a bad deck, I think he actually played okay. I think I would probably have to say John PX after Tweepapit. We did not get to see his game versus Vinny. Against Dion, I think I would have played things differently in his situation. Obviously, he 2-0'd, so you can't really argue with the results there, but I do think he could have played his match against Dion better. And against me, he needed to be much more aggressive in the first game and take advantage of the fact that he was so far ahead on resources. And then in the second and third game, I think the tilt just got to him from the first game. He let the emotions get to him, and he didn't throw away games he was winning, because I think I probably would have won game 2 and 3, even if he played perfectly. It's hard to say, but he certainly threw away any opportunity he had at winning games 2 and 3. After John PX, probably Dion. I think Dion and Kolbasnik played at very similar levels throughout this tournament. Kolbasnik's just had way better decks. They both made a handful of mistakes here and there. Some notable ones that I remember is Kolbasnik throwing out the Nakshu, meaning he had to discard Leopold the following turn. However, that is the exception, not the rule. I think in general, he navigated his Heinz decks fairly well. Or like his aggressive decks. Between me and Kato for first and second, I made more mistakes than Kato, but I also played almost 3 times as many games as Kato. 8-3. But I think Kato just had a very, very strong understanding of the game. Much stronger than I would expect from a player new to the tournament. Like this was his first major tournament. I think I probably played better than him overall in this tournament. Not just speaking because I won, because again, as we saw with the January OCC results, does not mean everything. However, I think I would probably put him second and myself first in terms of how well people played. Although, as we've seen, I made a ton of mistakes. This was not my best tournament. I think this is just a pretty good example of an OCC where there was a decent variety of decks. Everyone has room to improve on their play. Unfortunately, there was a couple of catastrophic misplays, which is always fun to see from an entertainment point of view, but it's pretty sad to see from a competitive point of view. You don't really want to see your competitors just get absolutely blown out by 1 or 2 mistakes. But overall, I think this February OCC was a very good OCC. It shows a healthy metagame. It shows new players, it shows different strategies, and it shows room for improvement going into the future.